Hands up if you spent all day refreshing your feed in the hope the new Harry Potter trailer would drop. And as expected, it has everyone talking, and I honestly cannot remember a trailer that garnered as much attention as this one. But it's far from surprising. Harry Potter is once in a generation story, and I, like many of you guys, grew up in the late 90s and early 2000s watching and reading the story of the boy who lived. And once again, we will return to Hogwarts for Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone this Christmas, which just feels so right. And to be honest, I like what I see. It looks and feels familiar, but at the same time very different. It's almost like they skipped the first two movies and jumped straight into Prisoner of Azkaban with a little bit of Hogwarts legacy thrown in. It's impossible to completely separate the show from the movies. Yes, there are moments that look like they're just retakes of what we saw 25 years ago, but much of those scenes come straight from the book. And I'm not going to sit here to try to convince you guys who are still on the fence, or those who already hate it. There is a lot I don't like, but nothing is a deal breaker for me. I wish it had a little bit more colour, and the music felt a little less generic, but I am excited for this show. The majority of the trailer focuses on the early portion of the season, with much detail going into Harry's life at number 4 Privet Drive, the bullying he receives not only at the hands of his cousin Dudley, but from his Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon. And you'll all remember Harry being locked in the cupboard under the stairs, but what about the time when Petunia cuts his hair with a pair of kitchen scissors? This makes what we saw Harry endure in the movies feel like nothing, and I honestly felt uneasy watching his suffering. And as I said, it feels much darker than the first film, which had its moments. As a kid, I was absolutely terrified of Voldemort, in the Forbidden Forest especially, but this is different. I kind of feel Harry's life in the Muggle world doesn't feel as hopeful as it did in the movie. In the movies, it felt like there was light at the end of the tunnel, whereas this just feels like the Dementor's kiss. But as you know, Harry's life will soon change once he receives his Hogwarts letter and a visit from the half-giant Hagrid. And I know not everyone loves this take on Hagrid, and some are even saying Hagrid looks like a cosplay. Well, I suppose that's because you're comparing him to the late Robbie Coltrane, and I feel this is shared with the majority of the older cast. The Potter films are the who's who of British and Irish cinema, with Maggie Smith, Richard Harris, Alan Rickman, and of course Robbie Coltrane leading the way. These actors have become the faces of their characters, and nobody can be replaced. Unless, of course, you're Albus Dumbledore, who has now been played by 5 different actors, and many fans are wondering if there will be a 6th anytime soon. I feel they've done a decent job with Dumbledore. He looks like the Great Wizard, but we have seen far too little to know how John Lithgow will stand up to the likes of Richard Harris, Michael Gambon, and Jude Law. McGonagall is well cast, and she's instantly recognisable, and I have no complaints. But as expected, the majority of the focus is on the casting of Severus Snape, because unless you've been living under a rock, you should all know by now they have race-swapped Hogwarts Potion Master. You know, the creepy guy with a hook nose, sallow skin and greasy hair. Instead, they cast a black guy who could pass as a model, dreadlocks and all. Look guys, nobody can or will replace Alan Rickman, and I kind of feel that's a reason why they decided to go for this guy. That, and they had to increase the diversity of the main cast, which you guys know I am not a fan of that action. And you've all heard the arguments to why this may go down as one of the worst casting decisions of all time, and how it negatively impacts the story, especially later on. And I've told you guys from the very beginning, I don't like this casting. I think he kinda looks cool, but that's not Snape. It's not a deal breaker for me, I'm still gonna watch this show, but nobody will deny this casting has put many people off. As for the kids, the jury's still out on Harry, and I'm gonna give the younger cast a chance. And just like with the movies, the kids' initial performances may suck, but as they get more experience and feel more natural around the camera, it's likely they will improve. I just hope they don't try to butcher Ron's character, give away all his best lines to Hermione, like they did in the films. Ron was excellent in the first 2 movies, but not so much later on. And those that have listened to the audiobooks know that Hermione will be fine. Draco definitely works, smug look and all. There's a shot of Neville, but nothing really to go on. This trailer is more focused on setting up the world of Harry Potter and returning to the magic. Most of the shots are taken from early on and feature very little dialogue. I think it'd be stupid to judge any performance based on this alone, especially with the kids. Future trailers will go more into dialogue and character, and then we'll have a rough idea on the cast. Now that's the Hogwarts staff and students. What about the castle itself? Which earlier I said looks like it's taken a lot of inspiration from the game Hogwarts Legacy, and I feel that version of the castle is now the blueprint for Hogwarts. Outside it looks like the films, it has the major iconic locations and towers, with some differences, but at the same time you know instantly what you're looking at, but the individual rooms, the staircases and the corridors look vastly different. Also whilst retaining the essence of what made it Hogwarts in the first place. Nobody wanted them to reuse the movie sets one for one, but at the same time nobody wanted Hogwarts to become unrecognisable. It does feel different, it may take some time getting used to, but I feel they've done a good job with the look of the castle so far. Whether that's the train station, the Gryffindor common room, the entrance hall or the classrooms. Obviously this is all based on these 2 minutes alone, and I think it's foolish to judge everything based on that. It's going to be a long 9 months of fans going back and forth. They were never going to please everyone. Some people can't look beyond the films, and that's okay. But I remember a time when people would say they preferred the books and hated all the changes the films made. Music-wise, like I said, it feels very generic, very insert magical sounding music here, but obviously we're comparing it to the legendary John Williams score, including his iconic Hedwig theme that is up there with his Star Wars theme, his Jaws theme, Indiana Jones. That piece of music is one of his best work, which I think will be heard at least once during this series, probably when Harry first arrives at Hogwarts or catches the snitch against Slytherin. Prop-wise, I have a few complaints. Harry's Hogwarts letter, the Hogwarts Express, the Sorting Hat, they all look fine. This has to be Harry's Phoenix Wand, which is the twin wand of Voldemort's. Again, it looks similar to the films, but perhaps a little less stylish. And I expect each character to have their own unique wand for merchandise reasons. They may not feature as many accessories as the films did, but I don't expect plain black sticks either. I'm not too keen on how the broomsticks look, with the Nimbus 2000 looking like it was found in a janitor's office. And I suppose this is a great time to discuss Quidditch. The game we see is Gryffindor versus Hufflepuff, Harry's second outing as Gryffindor Seeker. So we know we will see at least 2 matches, Gryffindor versus Slytherin and then Gryffindor versus Hufflepuff. We are yet to see the pitch in full, but it definitely looks less grand than the films. And like I said at the very beginning of the video, it definitely feels and looks more grounded and closer to the grittiness of the Prisoner of Azkaban, rather than the whimsical nature of Philosopher's Stone and Chamber of Secrets. Overall, solid trailer, it succeeded in its job and has people talking. I don't think it will convince people who have written this show off, but good luck in doing that. It may succeed in convincing people that were on the fence, but only time will tell. I liked most of it, have questions on some aspects, whilst not liking other elements. But in the end, we will always have the books, we will always have the films we grew up with. No matter what happens with the show, nothing will ever change that. I have a strong feeling this may be one, if not the most watched show in history, at least initially, on premiere night. And no matter what Twitter tells you, Harry Potter is still massive and still rakes in the money every single year. But guys, let me know your thoughts on the new Harry Potter trailer. How do you think it looks? What about the tone? And let us know how you feel about those casting choices. Anyways guys, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.